Randy Schnickel asks, do you get the sense that the reason why box office writers have superheroes fighting each other is because they're trying to plant the idea that there are no good guys and bad guys? That's a compelling explanation, but I think a better reason is that it's the heroes that bring in the money and not the villains. Nobody really goes to watch Spider-Man to see, Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. They go to see the superhero. The superhero's attractive and interesting and cool. People go to see Captain America. They don't go to see who's Captain America's fighting. So from an economic point of view, you need a villain. Every story needs a villain. And if the villain is boring, let's not even say boring, non-commercial, then think about the benefit you get by having one of the heroes be the villains. So now you're going to go watch Captain America fight Iron Man, and you're going to go see that movie because if it was Captain America fighting, the Tin Man, it wouldn't be as interesting. Actually, it'd be much more interesting. But so I think they're putting these superheroes in against each other simply because they get to double up, right? I mean, you got a Batman movie, you got a Superman movie. All right, the Superman movie does well. The Batman movie does well, but Batman and Superman in the same movie fighting each other, my God. Turned out that movie was a piece of crap. I did not see it, but I have no desire to go. I've heard nothing but awful things about it. So that, I think, is the main reason. Now, with that said, superhero movies are an exception to the norm of Hollywood because the superheroes come with a history. I mean, Captain America comes with a history, and so does Superman, for that matter. They can't really invert them. They can't make Captain America a communist. They can't do it all in one shot anyway. They can probably steer him that way over a course of several years. But the same thing is true for Superman. I mean, Superman, is Superman. And this is why the previous Superman Returns, not Man of Steel, the one before that, with Brandon Routh, they literally say, what does he stand for? He stands for truth, justice, all that stuff. Oh, really? No American way anymore? No, it didn't appeal to worldwide audiences. See, they're starting to turn the corner on that guy. But Captain America says things that please Americans, and it makes $500 million. And so they eat it. Hollywood eats it. They eat the fact that he's a pro-American guy. They eat the fact that he's not the communist that they want him to be. And not to belabor this point again, but when you get right down to it, I'm becoming more and more clear on this every day. Any storytelling is fundamentally conservative. Any storytelling. Liberals, conservatives, progressives, Republicans, Democrats, these are terms that change over time. But what doesn't change over time is your fundamental orientation towards society. And that can be boiled down as, are you an individualist or are you a collectivist? Oh, I'm sorry, Mitchell mentioned social justice earlier. I'm an individualist. I don't believe in social justice. I believe in individual justice. In other words, if a person was held in slavery, that person should be liberated, and then reparations should be taken from the person that held them in slavery and make an effort to make that person whole again. That's justice. And you can apply that sense of justice to every single slave or every single person who's been harmed. Every single person who's been harmed as an individual has a right to redress. They have a right to stop being harmed, and they have a right to reparations or whatever they can do in order to be made as whole as possible. That's why when a guy's imprisoned unjustly for 25 years, the state owes him a huge hunk of money, and it's not enough, but yeah, we did do something to make up for this wrong that's been done. So social justice warriors, the idea of a social justice warrior is we're going to punish a white person for something that his 7 generations back grandfather might have done. Most of the people in this country are descended from the North, and most of the people in the Confederacy did not hold slaves. So the chance of any individual white guy walking down the street being the son of a slave owner or daughter of a slaveholder is pretty thin. But we're going to punish all white people for something that happened 7 generations ago. And likewise, we're going to give to black people reparations from 7 generations ago. And that's not social justice. That's just new injustice. You're saying to these white kids, you can't get into these colleges because we've set aside these quotas, and then you're saying to black kids, you're entitled to this because of slavery, and it's just nonsense. And if you really want to get people, again, if you want to get that moral argument done, basically the way you can corner these people is to create a use their logic. If you're trying to tell me that white Americans 150 years after slavery owe black Americans who were not held as slaves, their fathers, mothers weren't held as slaves, or their grandparents, or their great-grandparents, or their great-great-grandparents, or the rest of it, if you're telling us that we owe them this debt from back in 150, 200 years ago, then say, okay, well, if we owe black people reparations for the 200-300 years of slavery in America, don't black people owe Jews reparations for the hundreds and hundreds of years that the Egyptians kept Jews in bondage? Yeah, but that was a long, long time ago. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So why aren't black people paying reparations to Jews? Well, they aren't descended from the Jew. Exactly. Correct. Yes, precisely. I mean, I'm one of those people that a social justice warrior would say has an obligation to black people. My grandfather came over here from England in 1915, well after slavery was abolished. My mother's a British subject to this day, so the British fought the wars that stopped slavery, and the slaves were captured by other blacks and all the rest of it. But you have to understand, again, I know I'm digressing, I'll come back to that previous question, but he did mention social justice. Social justice warriors are not really interested in this. They are interested in showing themselves and each other how good they are. And that's why you get these kind of things where people would say, if somebody attacks me in an alley and I had a gun and I shot him, I'd be depriving him of his civil rights. They actually believe it. They wouldn't believe it if they were actually being attacked, but they believe it now. It's mental illness. It's mental illness. There's something fundamentally wrong with these people. I don't feel guilty for things I didn't do. And people say, well, you benefited from this because of your whiteness at this, the black people built this. No, it's not true. Black slaves built or it certainly ran the economics of the plantation society in the South, but that cotton economy based on slavery burned down when the South burned down in 1865. Everything this country was built on, their black people helped build this country. They're 10% of the population. They helped build this country, but they did it as free people for salaries, just like everybody else. So, where do these reparations end? Do the Belgians owe reparations to the people in the Belgian Congo, the million people that they exterminated? Why are we the ones who are selected for this? Then you realize it's not about justice. It's about punishment. It's about power. Mitchell, it's about power. They want power over you. They all want power over other people. That's what's wrong with them. That's what's wrong with them. I got a message saying it's something attempted to start recording. It looks like our recording counter is still going, so I'm gonna just assume that everything's in one piece here. So yeah, it's that unearned moral support, superiority, virtue signaling. Go right there. You can't lose. Back to the question we were at before. The superheroes thing. I think I pretty much covered that too.